What is the Celestial Orrery? What does Trazyn want with it? What defends it? How does the actions of the Infinite One tie to the emergence at this time of the Great Rift? Friends, let's find out, and welcome to another 40k video. We draw today on the short story Bleeding Stars by Robert Rath, with a little additional lore at the end from the Necron's 5th edition codex. The zigarette had stood since gods walked free among the stars, beamer arrays that could section starships in orbit mounted its towers, and the walls and gatehouses that girdled its base were a league thick, not so much defences as they were tomb complexes in and of themselves. For aeons uncounted, they had kept vigil over the precious, destructive relic within, and for centuries they had stood against any siege. Yet tonight there was a chance it might fall. They were being attacked by destroyers. For centuries they had laid siege to the zigarette, attempting to use the treasure within to extinguish the organic life they looked upon with hatred and horror, and in all that time they had never got so close as they had tonight. Breaches had already occurred to the east and west, each partially or fully undone by a conclave of chronomancers who froze in the local timeline, even as the blocks of masonry flew into the air and reversed the flow, so the shattered walls reassembled themselves. But they had burned so much energy in the attempt, it could not be done again. Revka saw they had breached the wall vertically, coming up through the floor into the fighting platforms, and as they did so, they flickered with dimensional displacement energy. Ophidian destroyers they were, and two had an antimatter collider, but she managed to kill them both and prevent the bomb being activated by them when she struck the collier with her axe. This stopped the explosion, but the antimatter binded to her axe head on its necrodermis, so she threw it so the axe exploded safely in the air. The Necrons guarding the orrery wonder about the change in strategy after so many centuries of those they face. One wonders if it's linked to the Great Rift. The Celestial Orrery draws its information and connection through quantum entanglement, Ashanti argued. Were the masterwork destroyed, it is unclear how the galaxy would be affected. There is no reason to think the cataclysm would begin here on Thanatos, or even if it might take place in the local area, we just don't know. In the past, when we have used its powers, the results often caused unexpected chains of events. Are you suggesting the orrery is predicting its own destruction? Asked Zotha, with a note of irritation. As observation, astronomical interpretations were his purview. I am saying that since the orrery's bleeding has accelerated, the Cardanath forces have pushed us harder, and it would explain why the thrice-cursed Theron Karnabek has decided to throw his deranged servants at our walls. Then Trazyn appears and says he asked for the attacks to change. They talk more, and those who guard the orrery say, was it not enough to try and steal the orrery once? It is a perfect, entangled model of the galactic spiral, Lord of Solemnity. The merest shift of the matrix, a micron of difference, can cause sympathetic disasters, supernova, the making of matter. Yes, you explained it to me last time, though again I must reiterate, my purpose was not to take the orrery. I merely wished to survey the masterwork in order to study the possibility of removing it to Solemnity for safekeeping. Remove? On a strictly temporary basis, but I determined quite without you that this was not feasible and contented myself with extensive scans. Trazyn says that 3 solar cycles ago, a relic I possessed, a bell prophesied to ring upon the start of the cataclysm began to toll. I must consult the orrery. Human prophecies hold that the bell heralds a new offensive by the forces of the Imperium. If that is true, and it is centered where I suspect, the orrery will reflect it, perhaps with some destabilization in the galactic northwest, near the domain of the Altimar. He knew that they knew what he was talking about. If the Tomb Killer, Abaddon, unleashes his unnatural armies upon the galaxy, it is everyone's concern, even yours. I will consult the orrery in peace, simply to ascertain the extent of the problem. If it is not as I feared, I will go back to Solemnus and rebuild happy and secure. Otherwise, I will set course for the great wound in reality, to witness the emergence and do what I can. He then reveals that an ally, the mad beast, Karnabek, has allied with him, and he projects an image of their discussion. Trazyn says that for helping him get in, the orrery can then be destroyed. Trazyn only wants a small part of it, and his gallery kept safe, of course. The mad beast, for context, is the leader of his dynasty, who wants to eliminate all life in the galaxy, and the bell is the bell of Saint Gestal. Trazyn stole it and then realized, when it later hurt his museum by chiming, and did this 13 times, he understood there was something behind that and began to look into it. Trazyn convinces them, and they say he would not destroy the orrery. As they try to take him, he drops the labyrinth, and it seems to unleash nothing at first, but then they see someone, a highly skilled sniper. Hands of those who guard the orrery grab Trazyn. He says they should surrender, and it's then they see the death mark. Zukar was not sure where the death mark had come from, though in truth he knew exactly. Like all death marks, it had come from nowhere, emerging like an apparition from its dimensional shooting hide, and now it stood before him, just outside his peripheral scry, a void cape streaming down from its back like vapour, and the long synaptic disintegrator pointed at his skull. It would end the Necron's life, if it was told to. Trazyn gives it an introduction. May I introduce Huntmaster, Game Warden of Solemnus. Seeing the danger, those there ask what Trazyn wants. You know what I want, to consult the orrery. Then I will go and take Pharaon Carnabec with me. Light, so much light. It was difficult for his oculars to scry anything. 1,000,000 points of brightness, 1,000,000,000, more than even his prodigious mind could process and catalogue. Dead gods, Trazyn said. It's dazzling. I cannot even make sense of it. You will need to set your oculars to maximum opacity, as Shenty advised, and scale back your signals collection. Otherwise it will overwhelm your senses. Trazyn's vision darkened until he could perceive the glory of the masterwork before him as they approached it on the floating barge. A puzzling sensation overcame him when he found it difficult to identify. It saw, he whispered, surprised. It has been a long time since I was awestruck. Below him lay the whirl of the galaxy, rendered in glowing lodestones of necrodermis, each hung suspended in a lattice as fine and intricate as an arachnid's web, radiating with the intensity of the sun with which it was entangled. Far into the star cloud a small green explosion sparked, radiating out like a disc, sort of shockwave, and shivering the threads. A supernova, Zukar observed, far off on the rim, due to the natural decay, unexpected death. We could do the same to any star across known space, trimming here, plucking there. At a word, we could crush the young sun of the human's homeworld and reduce their capital to ash. But the galaxy is a network, a system. Each change causes unintended and dire consequences, rippling chains of events. You are a preservationist too, Trazyn. You must understand that. I do, Trazyn nodded. Of course I. You stopped. You observed something in the orrery. You fools. Keep your voice low, whispered Zotha. Trazyn's hands tightened. You utter fools. It was as if a saw had slashed the galaxy's throat. Star networks bled. The space around them inflamed like traumatized flesh. A crimson fissure, like an infection creeping down a vein, spread below the surface of the galaxy. No one would notice it, even living directly within the red cloud. But it was as real as an internal hemorrhage, and it stemmed from the great wound in the galaxy, a wound tore open by the Old Ones during the War in Heaven, stitched closed by his kind, and ripped open again by the reckless Eldari, the place the humans called the Eye of Terror, which seemed poised to trigger the fault line and split the galaxy in two. Trazyn wheeled on them, voice low. This did not happen recently. It has been building, and yet you did not warn anyone. You let it fester. I do not expect you to understand, said Zukar. Only after eons of taking in the orrery, of looking at this perfect mirror of the cosmos, could you begin to grasp the burden that comes with it. Stay long enough, and you will see 1,000 species emerge and die. Witness how cataclysms bring destruction and renewal. Yet still, the cosmic wheel turns. The Tomb Killer is not merely invading. He has been weakening our defenses against the psychic dimension. If reality splits open, it will change the galaxy's very shape. Tomb worlds will be snuffed out along with mortal ones. Even this orrery might. This place is light years from the nearest point that will be impacted. So is Solemnus. As it happens, you act as though we are responsible for the entire galaxy. We are not. We are merely responsible for the orrery. You are condemning worlds to obliteration. You might as well feed them to the destroyer at the gate. We are letting nature take its course. It is not our place to intervene. This is an ethical imperative. Zukar took a step forward, straightening to his full height, and raising his arms at the grandiosity around him. Behold what is around you, Trazyn of Solemnus. We are custodians of the cosmic order, not its engineers. Our place is to stand vigil and observe the exquisite clockwork of. Trazyn's fist slammed into his skull, hard enough to bash in part of his long death mask and split his ocular in a delta of cracks. Stars shivered with the force of the blow. Trazyn stepped forward, leaning over this chief technomancer who had only stayed upright because observation of Zotha had caught him. He symbolically static spat on the Oruska cartouche in the cryptech's ribcage. That is what I think of your ethical imperative. Now take me back to the outer chamber. What will you do? I will go to the world whose name we've forgotten, the world the humans know as Cadia, and try to fix the damage your ethics have done. Why? Do they need a thief? No, Trazyn said. He snapped his fingers, and Huntmaster stepped out of the air, bowing low to present Trazyn with his empathic obliterator. They need a savior, Trazyn said, taking the weapon and igniting its headpiece with a crackle of etheric energy. And until their god emperor rises, I will have to suffice. Now let's go over that codex law. The tomb world of Thanatos is a hollow planet, and hidden at its heart is one of the galaxy's greatest treasures, the Celestial Orrery, crafted by artisans of Oruska dynasty. Long before the onset of the war in heaven, this web of holograms and living metal is beyond price for its artistic value alone. Yet the Celestial Orrery is far more than mere decorative finery. The tiny pinpricks of glowing light suspended within the impossibly intricate matrix record the positions of every star in the galaxy. Snuff out one of these lights and its physical counterparts will go supernova long millennia before its destined time, bringing fiery oblivion to all nearby worlds. So you see there's a little time frame between something being done to the orrery and the actual action taking place. Perhaps one of the other reasons why it's not used so much, because it's hard to predict how things will have changed between when it's set off and when it happened. Such an act cannot be performed without consideration, however, as each star destroyed in this fashion upsets the fundamental forces of the galaxy, setting off a catastrophic chain reaction. Only with further manipulation of the orrery can these forces be returned to their proper balance, and this, invariably, takes many thousands of years of constant and precise micromanagement. With so much power at their fingertips, it is well that the royal court of Thanatos is not given to maniacal displays. Rather, they see themselves as gardeners of creation and dispassionately use the orrery in a precise and sparing manner, pruning the galaxy only out of need to prevent it from becoming wild and overgrown. Alas, this restraint is not something universally respected. Unending war rages across Thanatos' barren continent and in the skies above it, as the armies and fleets of the Oruska dynasty strive to prevent the Celestial Orrery from falling into the incautious hands of aliens and Necrons alike, and as we've just read, also keeping it out of the clutches of Trazyn the Infinite, who, of course, only just wants it for his museum.